Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into something complex. We're not just looking at a spy thriller.
No, definitely not.
We're dissecting this, well, decade-spanning global conspiracy. It's built on myth, murder, and the psychological engineering of one man.
David Webb.
David Webb, the scholar. Shattered and then rebuilt as Jason Bourne.
Yeah, and the source material we have is just phenomenal. It lays it all out. And, what it makes clear right away is this isn't just about finding some rogue assassin.
Right.
It's really an exploration of, the highest stakes political cleanup operation you can imagine.
Convicted by who?
Global power brokers.
Yeah.
People determined to bury the sins of this old Vietnam-era unit.
Medusa.
Medusa, exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission today really is to understand how that secret war machine, Medusa, combined with the singular genius of Carlos the Jackal, forces the impossible resurrection of David Webb's deadliest persona, Jason Bourne.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of this crisis.
Right.
The narrative kicks off not with action per se, but with this interruption of peace, domestic life.
Yeah, the quiet is shattered.
We open on David Webb. He's the soft-spoken professor, right? But suddenly he's facing this immediate lethal threat. His quiet life is just over instantly.
It was a really chilling transition, from total normalcy to absolute crisis mode.
So what does he do? What's the first move?
Webb knows, instinctively he has to cut ties, completely sever himself from his family.
Marie, his wife, and the kids.
Marie, Jamie, and Allison, to protect them. So we see him, immediately chartering a private jet. Tells Marie, take the kids, go far away, specifically to the Caribbean, the island of Montserrat.
And Marie's reaction. She must see something's wrong.
Oh, totally. The sources capture her perspective really vividly. She's terrified because she sees her husband imposing this strange control over himself.
Yeah.
This sort of steely professional resolve, something David Webb, the scholar, just shouldn't be capable of.
She's seeing the ghost. She's seeing Bourne resurface.
Exactly that. Marie confirms it herself. She says she's staring at a man they both thought had disappeared from their lives forever.
Wow.
It's the return of Jason Bourne. And that forced separation, sending them away, that's really the first casualty of this whole conflict.
But the actual trigger, the thing that sets everything in motion, wasn't someone breaking down the door, was it? It was information, a message.
Yeah, a coded message aimed at their closest ally, their friend,
Dr. Panov.
Dr. Morris Panov, Webb's psychiatrist. The crisis ignites with what the sources call a crazy telegram.
Crazy how?
Well, first, it uses the name Jason Bourne, which hasn't been active, for years. That alone screams trouble.
Okay.
But the really crucial detail, the part that confirms it's a trap, is the instruction in the telegram. It specifically told allies not to call the Webb house.
And Panov recognizes that immediately.
Instantly. He knows the tactic.
Yeah.
Using the Bourne name guarantees it gets flagged by, every intelligence agency. It basically broadcasts Webb's location to all his enemies.
While simultaneously preventing anyone friendly from warning him directly.
Exactly. It's a classic trap.
Yeah.
A communications blackout combined with a high-profile lure.
So, okay, the trap is sprung. For you listening, what we're diving into today is really this convergence. Three huge world-spanning threats all colliding.
Yeah, you've got the artificial identity, Bourne himself.
Then the old conspiracy, Medusa, still lurking.
And finally, the global hunt run by Carlos the Jackal.
It's like the peak of geopolitical paranoia all focused on one man.
It really is. It's the ghost, Bourne, fighting the reality, Webb. And both of them are fighting this machine built on decades of secrets, denial, and immense power.
So where do we start untangling this?
Let's start with the ghost. Let's dissect Bourne. Because to understand any of this, you have to go back to how he was created.
Okay, let's shift gears then. Part 1, the anatomy of a myth. And for anyone who only knows let's say, the popular version of Bourne, the source material here drops a bombshell, a huge psychological revelation. Jason Bourne wasn't actually a person.
That's the absolute core insight. It changes everything you think you know. Alex Conklin confirms it.
The CIA guy who ran the original operation.
That's him. He states flat out, David Webb was not an assassin by nature. Bourne was an invention. A persona.
How do you just invent an international assassin?
Through what Conklin called massive disinformation. The sources actually detail the logistics. It's fascinating. For years, whenever there was some high-profile, politically tricky assassination,
Wow.
think Far East, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Macau, Korea, they'd fly Bourne in. But here's the twist. Not to do the killing.
No. Then why?
Specifically to plant evidence linking him, Jason Bourne, to the scene.
So they were framing their own creation.
Exactly. Ensuring the name, the myth, was spread like this malignant rumor all across the Far East underworld and intelligence circles.
That's an unbelievable amount of effort and resources just to create a fictional killer. Why not just use a real agent?
That's where the psychological warfare comes in. The myth gave them deniability. It allowed for a kind of operational fluidity that a real person, a real agent with a real history could never provide.
Okay.
And the purpose was singular, ruthless. Bourne was engineered from the ground up to be the ultimate challenge to Carlos.
To draw the Jackal out.
Precisely. By creating this ghost killer who seemed faster, more brutal, totally untraceable, this perfect storm of terror they hoped Carlos, the real terrorist, would feel challenged, feel compelled to come out into the open.
And for David Webb, the man playing this role, what did that mean for him?
It meant 3 years of operational hell. The sources say he lived in a world of filth, drugs, warlords, crime, just immersing himself in that darkness to make the legend believable.
And this invented Bourne identity was essentially layered onto Webb's existing deep trauma, wasn't it?
Yeah, the trauma is the foundation, the bedrock upon which they built Bourne. You have to understand who David Webb was before all this.
A scholar?
A young, very promising Foreign Service officer, a scholar specializing in Far Eastern studies. Posted in Phnom Penh during the height of the conflict there.
Living a normal life.
As normal as possible then. He was there with his Thai wife and their 2 young children. A quiet life, by all accounts. And then tragedy. The sudden, brutal indifference of war.
What happened?
A stray jet, unidentified, strafed the area by the river where his family was, killed his wife and both children instantly.
God, that kind of loss. Instantaneous, senseless. It would break anyone.
It didn't just break him, it transformed him into something else, something purely lethal. The sources say he went crazy.
Understandable.
He just jettisoned his entire identity, rejected his career, any idea of a peaceful future. He made his way through the chaos to Saigon, and that's where he found Medusa.
He joined this unit, Medusa, and got a new name.
Became Delta One. In Medusa, that was standard. You shed your name, your past, professionalism and anonymity, and focusing only on the mission.
And this unit, Medusa, it wasn't exactly standard military operating procedure, was it? It sounds like it was something darker.
Oh, much darker. The official description calls it a collection of violent misfits and killers.
Like a death squad.
Essentially, yes. A clandestine death squad operation, often operating outside, even against the political directives coming down from Command Saigon.
But effective.
Here's the paradox. Delta One, David Webb, became the most effective guerrilla leader they had, maybe in the whole war, interested only in killing. And despite their brutal methods, Medusa sent back more functional intelligence than all the units sent out by Saigon put together.
Their effectiveness was undeniable then. But the methods?
Monstrous. Which brings us right to the core political secret. The reason this whole conspiracy exists now, Medusa's immunity, its political shield.
If they were so effective, why the need for this massive ongoing cover-up decades later?
Because the methods were completely unacceptable. The political cost was and is immense. The source material is very clear on this. Medusa's activities included the slaughter of non-combatants.
Okay, and the diversion of funds totaling millions of dollars. We're talking about systemic war crimes on a scale that could never, ever withstand public scrutiny.
And crucially, high-level people in Washington knew about it, or allowed it.
That's the key. Their entire operation was either directed by, or at least tacitly allowed by, very high-level U.S. officials at the time.
So when the war ended, Washington couldn't just admit that the U.S. government had financed or sanctioned massacres and embezzlement.
Absolutely not. Officially, Medusa had to remain a private, maybe rogue operation, never acknowledged. The sources spell out the stakes perfectly if U.S. government involvement was ever proven.
What then?
It would completely ruin the reputations and probably lead to criminal charges for very important people in the White House and the State Department, people who, by the time of our story, are now established global power brokers.
So these aren't just retired bureaucrats. These are people currently in positions of immense power. Exactly. Think chairman of the Joint Chiefs, high-level ambassadors, people at the absolute top. They built their entire careers, their global influence on the silent burial of these war crimes.
This political shield, then, it's like a black hole of secrets. And it necessitates this permanent, ongoing conspiracy. They have to silence the one man who could potentially expose everything.
David Webb, or Jason Bourne. He's the living embodiment of their potential destruction. It's the ultimate self-defense mechanism of this entrenched power structure. They are terrified of being dragged out and, metaphorically drawn and quartered for decisions made 20 years prior.
So the return of Bourne, the name resurfacing, isn't just a threat to Webb. It signals the potential collapse of the current global hierarchy.
Which leads us straight into part 2, how this old secret machine is still operating right now, in the present day of the story.
Okay, let's transition. We're looking at the conspiracy now. Conklin and his allies, they realize pretty quickly this isn't just a few old guys getting nervous, right?
No, not at all. They realize this thing is massive. It's still breathing, still alive, as the sources put it.
A functioning network.
A well-oiled machine involving active, very high-ranking officials who are colluding to keep the Medusa secrets buried. We can actually map out the players from the source material.
Okay, who are we talking about? Give us the roster of power.
It's pretty terrifying. We're talking about the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the U.S. ambassador in London, a guy named Atkinson, the supreme commander of NATO, General Teagarten,
NATO command, why?
and the chairman of the National Security Agency, McAllister.
That's basically the entire top tier of the U.S. military and intelligence structure, all implicated, all working together to keep this lid on.
It shows you the depth of the fear, right? It transcends political party, specific agency mandates. It's about shared guilt, shared secrets, and frankly, institutional self-preservation.
And the network reaches deep into the Pentagon too, doesn't it? There's a specific mole there.
Yes, a really key figure, General Norman Swain. He was head of Pentagon procurements, so he controlled huge amounts of money and access.
And how do we learn about his involvement? It's not like he confessed.
No, we get crucial insights from 2 people on the periphery. His aide, a master sergeant named Flanagan, and his wife, Rachel.
What did they reveal?
They paint a picture of Swain as a man living under intense, almost debilitating fear. Paranoia.
Fear of what specifically?
There was this phrase, snake lady. Just mentioning it sent Swain into a visible panic.
Who is Snake Lady?
It's implied she was an assistant to the White House chief of protocol, someone who moved in those high society circles, a gatekeeper who apparently knew way too much about the Medusa connections.
And Swain's wife noticed this fear.
Rachel Swain saw the panic, and maybe sensing the danger, or maybe just out of marital discord, she started doing something interesting.
What?
She secretly started collecting the license plate numbers of all the high-profile clandestine visitors who came to see her husband late at night.
Creating an evidence trail. Smart. What about Flanagan, the aide?
Flanagan basically felt like a prisoner. He confirmed Swain was terrified, especially when Snake Lady came up. He described being confined to quarters during Swain's real meetings because, he wasn't considered good enough for Swain's powerful friends.
Expendable.
Totally. Flanagan knew the Medusa connection. He called himself a sweeper in a uniform. He knew his only options were a quiet, probably watched retirement or a body bag. The fear just radiates off these secondary characters. They're all trapped.
Okay, so you've got the top brass, the Pentagon moles. Now let's look at the immediate reaction to Webb's return. The panic sets in, and they go after the leverage point.
Marie Webb. She's the lure. The one person guaranteed to bring David Webb running.
And this involves the legal arm of the conspiracy.
Yeah, this is where Randolph Gates comes in, described as a legal Olympian. But really, he's the conspiracy's facilitator, the conduit of death, as the sources put it.
What does he do?
When Webb sends Marie and the kids to Montserrat, Gates panics. He knows they have to find her fast, trace her escape route, cover their tracks.
Who does a legal Olympian hire for dirty work?
He goes down market, hires this shady former judge, now a disbarred lawyer named Prefontaine, described as a legal scumbag operating out of Harvard Square, of all places.
Relaxy.
Gates pays Prefontaine massive amounts of money for confidentiality and to use his less reputable network to find out exactly where Marie went.
Tranquility Isle, Montserrat.
Exactly. The sheer amount of money involved just shows the desperation. They have to find Marie to control Webb.
So that's the Medusa side, using fancy lawyers and scumbag PIs. Meanwhile, Carlos the Jackal has his own network activated, a very different kind.
Yeah, the Jackal uses what the sources call his army of old men.
Old men, not elite commandos.
No, these are described as lost misfits, criminals whose impoverished last days were made better by the assassin's largesse, people utterly beholden to him.
Total loyalty.
Fealty unto death. Carlos demands it, and he gets it. They're isolated from the modern world, living on his dime, waiting for his call.
And the sources focus on one particular pair assigned to hunt Marie, right?
Jean-Pierre Fontaine and his wife, Regine. A really tragic pair.
Tell us about them.
Fontaine travels on false papers. He's got his infirm wife, Regine, with him. To the outside world, like the airline staff, he's presented as this genuine hero of the French resistance.
A legend.
A legend so revered that supposedly Le Grand Charles himself, de Gaulle, singled him out for praise. It's all carefully constructed myth, of course. His real heroics were more about theft and survival. But the myth gives him cover, allows him to move without suspicion.
But his actual mission now is assassination.
Yes. He's an aging but still dedicated operative for Carlos. He's armed, pistol, a special cylindrical silencer, and, kind of chillingly, a straight razor. Ready to kill Marie on orders from his boss, the Monseigneur Carlos.
But the psychological toll, especially on his wife Regine.
It's immense. Regine knows exactly what kind of life Carlos demands. She knows the horrific price Fontaine will pay if he fails or is caught. She can't bear it.
What does she do?
She takes her own life? Uses pills she had hidden inside licorice pastilles she always carried.
Oh my.
Her final act is meant as a liberation for her husband. She leaves him a note. Maintenant nous tous sommes libres, mon amour. Now we are both free, my love.
She frees herself from the suffering. And in doing so, she actually frees Fontaine from his obligation to Carlos, doesn't she?
Exactly. It's this moment of terrible irony. Carlos's own cruelty, the pressure he puts on his people, accidentally creates an ally for Bourne. Fontaine is now free from the burden of caring for Regine, and he feels bound by her final wish for freedom.
So he turns against Carlos.
He does. He becomes this crucial source of information for Bourne later on, helping him understand and start to unravel the Jackal's network. It's a key turning point.
Okay, that definitely sets the stage for more conflict. Let's move into part 3. International intrigue and operational conflicts. The body count starts rising fast here, doesn't it? As soon as Bourne's allies start digging into Medusa.
Immediately. The moment Conklin and DCI Holland start asking questions, people connected to the old secrets start dying. First up, Stephen DeSole.
Who was he?
CIA analyst, specialized in the agency's deepest, darkest secrets. He's found dead. Officially, it's a suspicious accident. Car crash on a deserted Maryland road at 4:30 in the morning.
But Conklin doesn't buy it.
Not for a second. He knows it was murder.
How? Just the circumstances.
That, plus a key detail Conklin knew about DeSole personally, he suffered from severe night blindness, nyctalopia, meaning there was absolutely no way DeSole would be driving himself voluntarily on a dark back road at 4:30 a.m. It was impossible for him.
So staged. Medusa's silencing someone who knew too much.
Confirmed. DeSole's expertise was tied to deep intelligence archives, and his death was linked specifically to buried fax transmissions he'd exchanged with. Guess who?
NATO Commander Teagarden.
General Teagarden, the man Carlos is about to assassinate. DeSole's death was the first move in clearing the board.
And the conspiracy's reach isn't just government insiders. It extends to organized crime, too, right, in New York.
Absolutely. Medusa is clearly outsourcing some of its, lethal protection. We see this mafia network surface. Two figures, Niccolo Della Croce, using the alias John Smith, and Louis DeFazio.
What's their cover?
Atlas coin vending machines, a classic mob front, and we overhear them discussing a contract for a hit.
How much?
A massive 7-figure sum. Over $1 million back then.
$1 million for a hit. That tells you how badly these Medusa power brokers want someone silenced. They're willing to pay top dollar to the mob.
It just confirms the scale again. It's not just institutional power, it's financial power being deployed using criminal networks. Which leads us right into the Jackal's big move, his masterstroke in Paris.
The assassination of General Teagarden in Brussels. That was bold enough. But the real brilliance was what Carlos did after the killing.
Pure, ruthless genius from Carlos. He executes Teagarden, a high-profile NATO commander, yes, but also someone with potential links back to the original Medusa conspiracy. But then
he takes the credit.
He immediately claims credit as Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
The sources call this move ingenious. And it is. It achieves multiple goals. First, it removes Teagarden, a potential weak link for Medusa. But more importantly, psychologically, it freezes you in Paris.
Meaning it pins the murder squarely on Bourne. Makes him the world's most wanted man overnight.
Exactly. Every intelligence agency on the planet is now hunting Jason Bourne for killing the NATO Supreme Commander. It forces Bourne to stop hunting Carlos and instead fight for his own life, clear his own name. It completely shifts the dynamic.
So Bourne is forced to engage directly with Carlos's network now. He has to find a way in, Prove Carlos did it.
which leads him to try and contact one of Carlos's conduits, the guy named Santos.
Where does he find him?
Using an alias, Simon, Bourne tracks Santos down to this gritty Foreign Legion bar in Argenteuil outside Paris. The Coeur du Soldat, the soldier's heart.
What's Bourne's plan with Santos?
He tries to broker a deal. Offers Santos a way out, a profitable disappearance. Get him out from under the Jackal's thumb.
Does it work?
No. Santos is too focused on the reward Carlos offered for cornering Bourne. But even talking to Bourne is betrayal in Carlos's eyes.
And Carlos finds out.
The Jackal has eyes and ears everywhere. Santos is found dead shortly after. Gruesome death. It's described as Carlos's reward for even thinking about betraying him.
The discovery of Santos's fate leads Bourne to someone else in the network, right? Dominique Levier.
Yes. She's operating under the identity of her dead sister, Jacqueline Lavier. She's a key figure.
What's her role?
She was involved in an earlier trap for Bourne years ago. Now, she manages a lot of Carlos's logistics. His couriers, safe houses, communications, often using religious disguises like nuns' habits to move across borders without suspicion.
And she tells Bourne how Santos was caught.
She does, and it's a chilling detail. It perfectly illustrates Carlos's methods.
It wasn't high-tech surveillance that caught Santos, was it?
No, not at all. Lavier reveals Santos was discovered because he was seen sending out heavy boxes, sure. But the real giveaway. He skipped his predictable, routine summer ritual,
Which was?
clipping and watering his precious English garden.
Seriously, missing gardening got him killed.
Carlos knew his operatives' habits that intimately. Missing that ritual told Carlos that Santos was distracted, engaged in something outside his routine, something that superseded his normal life, meaning betrayal.
That level of granular psychological observation is terrifying. Okay, so while Bourne is navigating this deadly game in Paris, back in Washington, Conklin and Holland realize they're outgunned.
Yeah, they realize the fight against both Carlos and the Medusa conspiracy is too big. They need help from somewhere unexpected, somewhere Carlos might not anticipate.
Moscow.
Which brings in the KGB connection, a crucial figure named Krupkin.
Who is Krupkin?
A very effective, quite senior KGB field officer, but pragmatic. He agrees to help the Americans track Carlos's activities inside the Soviet Union. His backstory is fascinating. It really gives you insight into the Cold War mindset.
How does he justify working with the CIA, essentially?
He's a believer in the Soviet system, but not blindly. He reveals his ancestors were actually hanged under the Tsars, the Romanovs. So for his family, the revolution, despite all its flaws, represented a new beginning, an opportunity.
But he's not just ideological.
No, he's intensely practical. He says he carries credentials in his head, meaning he knows secrets, operational details, things the Soviet government absolutely cannot afford to have exposed. This gives him leverage. He's almost like a capitalist exploiting the weaknesses within the communist system.
But even the KGB, this supposedly impenetrable fortress, has its own vulnerability to Carlos, a mole.
A huge one, and it proves fatal. General Grigory Rodchenko, high-ranking KGB general, he's revealed as Carlos's mole, his long-time eyes and ears deep inside the Soviet hierarchy.
Feeding Carlos information, giving him cover.
Critical intelligence, access,
Right.
operational cover within the USSR. But like Santos, once Rodchenko's utility is finished or the risk of exposure grows,
Carlos eliminates him.
murdered by the Jackal himself, tying up loose ends. Ruthless efficiency.
And Rodchenko's help allows Carlos to pull off his most audacious act on Soviet soil, the attack on Novgorod. How does a terrorist get access to military missiles?
It was an unbelievable breach of security. Using the intelligence Rodchenko provided, Carlos manages to steal missiles from the Kubinka Armory, a supposedly highly secure facility.
And uses them against Novgorod. What exactly is Novgorod?
It's this massive top-secret KGB training complex, sprawling over dozens of square miles along the Volkhov River. Its purpose was to train deep-cover Soviet agents, spies intended for long-term immersion in the West.
How did they train them?
By building authentic, meticulously detailed replicas of foreign cities and towns. There was a French section, a British section, an Israeli section, but the biggest was the American compound.
What was that like?
Streets lined with real, functioning American gas stations. Grocery stores stocked with American brands. Boutiques. Even, get this, authentic Burger King.
Burger Kings. Inside a top-secret KGB base.
Yeah, and the level of detail went beyond buildings. Language was key.
Russian wasn't allowed.
Strictly forbidden within the compound. Everyone there spoke American English. They were trained to perfectly replicate different U.S. regional dialects, Boston, Southern drawl, Midwest twang.
Wow, total immersion.
The ultimate psychological conditioning to ensure agents wouldn't have the slightest linguistic slip-up when deployed for years undercover in the U.S. It was an isolated, manufactured American reality.
And Carlos turns this elaborate simulation into a real war zone.
An absolute inferno.
Yeah.
He uses the stolen missiles with devastating effect. He specifically targets and destroys the Paris section of the complex.
Why Paris?
It wasn't just about random destruction. It was a message. A strategic statement to the KGB, his former employers who rejected him. He wanted to demonstrate their colossal error in not utilizing my extraordinary talent.
You wanted recognition.
He wanted the world, especially his intelligence rivals, to know he was still the padrone, the maestro, the architect of chaos, capable of striking anywhere, even inside the heart of the KGB.
Okay, let's move into the aftermath, part 4. Despite this massive attack, Bourne survives Novgorod.
Yeah.
Miraculously. How? What mistake did Carlos make?
It was a surprisingly simple technical error, actually. A fatal oversight in how the main truck bomb was wired.
How so?
Carlos's team wired the bomb to the top of the truck's engine block, not underneath the chassis where it would have maximum lateral force.
So the blast went the wrong way.
Primarily upwards. The sources say it blew up, it did not blow out on ground level. This spared Bourne, who was pinned down nearby from the main deadly concussive force of the shockwave. A small detail saved his life.
And his escape from the burning complex. He didn't get out alone, did he?
No, he was helped by a really interesting character, a young Soviet trainer working at Novgorod named Benjamin.
He helped an American operative escape a KGB facility.
Benjamin makes a conscious moral choice. He gets a direct order not to help Bourne, to leave him. But he defies it. He explicitly says, "I'm no unthinking robot."
That's a powerful statement from within that system.
It really is. It shows that even inside the most rigid, controlled environments, individual conscience, independent moral action can still happen. Benjamin uses the chaos and the inferno as cover and manages to get Bourne out via helicopter.
But even with Carlos on the run after Novgorod, his network doesn't just collapse. There's a final attack.
That's right. Carlos might be fleeing, but his disciples, the ones trained to absolute loyalty, they're still active. They've been fed disinformation that Bourne is heading back to his family.
So they attack Tranquility Isle.
Exactly. A final, desperate, multi-pronged assault on Marie's refuge in Montserrat. Helicopters, a speedboat dropping off gunmen, intense firefight. It proves that even when Carlos himself is cornered, his reach, his operational capability through his network, remains lethal and immediate.
This whole ordeal took a massive toll, not just on Webb, but on his allies, too. Krupkin, the KGB guy who helped Conklin in Holland. He's obviously exposed now. What happens to him?
His forced retirement plan is just a masterclass in deep cover disinherence. He knows he can never go back. He spent 5 days and nights planning every detail.
What did the plan involve?
First, routing all his funds, secretly accumulated over years through the Cayman Islands, untraceable. Then, using that clean money to set up a small, legitimate charter business somewhere far away, creating a completely new, credible backstory.
And physically, he couldn't stay looking like Krupkin.
No way. The plan included getting new fingerprints surgically altered in Buenos Aires, wiping away any physical trace, and then minor cosmetic surgery in Rio de Janeiro, which he specifically notes is far better than New York for that sort of thing, just to change his profile slightly.
The price for helping the Americans was total erasure of his identity.
Complete erasure. That's the ruthlessness of the Cold War intelligence game he was playing.
And Dr. Panoff, Webb's psychiatrist friend, he was abducted by those mob guys working for Medusa. How did he fare?
Panoff suffered terribly during the interrogation. The sources are pretty graphic. He nearly lost the use of his left arm permanently and suffered partial paralysis in his right leg from the beatings, the trauma.
Physically devastating. What about mentally?
Thankfully, the chief nurse looking after him confirms that his mind, his most valuable asset as a psychiatrist, is intact. He survived mentally.
That's something.
Although, she adds with a bit of humor, that he remains an absolutely terrible patient, constantly fighting the confinement, even in a hospital bed, still fiercely independent.
But ultimately, the deepest cost, the most profound change, is in David Webb himself. He's rescued. He's technically safe for the moment. But Marie sees it immediately. The battle has changed him, irrevocably.
Yeah, Marie confronts him with this really terrifying reality. She sees that the scholar, the man she married, is, well, he's fading away, disappearing.
How does she know? What does she notice?
It's subtle but chilling. She says, his voice changes. There's a hardness, a professional detachment that wasn't there before. She argues that David can't handle it anymore.
Meaning the gentle academic David Webb persona is no longer strong enough to deal with the permanent threat they now live under.
Exactly. The ruthless, calculating, operational persona of Jason Bourne is now required, not just for missions, but for their day-to-day survival.
Does Webb himself recognize this split, this loss of self?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He admits it himself. He knows the split identity is still there, but he feels like he's losing control of the facade he puts on for Marie.
What does he say?
He's looking out at the water, physically separated from his family, even when they're nearby because of who he has to be. And he realizes Bourne is becoming dominant. He says Bourne is an act I put on for his wife, and I do it badly.
Wow.
He concludes David Webb must vanish completely because the engineered persona, the ghost created to hunt a terrorist, has now basically consumed the original man. The Spaller can only keep his family safe by fully becoming the killer.
That realization that his family's safety depends on him being born permanently, it really brings us back to that bleak philosophy of the professional spy you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we see it reflected in comments from both Alex Conklin and that French intelligence consultant Bernardine.
What do they say about that life?
It's striking and pretty depressing, honestly. Bernardine describes how professionals like them merely use the normal world. Normal life, family, it's all just a couverture, a cover story.
The real world is different.
Their only real family, he says, are maybe sporadic lovers and their enemies, who, weirdly, they sometimes respect more because they understand the game. The life of deep espionage is fundamentally solitary, defined by secrets, betrayals, and self-reliance.
So, if we step back and recalibrate the whole scope of this deep dive, the conspiracy, it was never just about finding Bourne, was it?
No, it was always about keeping those decades-old secrets of Medusa buried. The slaughter of civilians, the stolen millions, keeping that buried by this powerful network of global power brokers.
Who were then expertly manipulated and exploited by Carlos the Jackal for his own ends.
Right. The ghost, Bourne, was engineered by the West to save them from Carlos. But in the process, his existence threatened to expose the deep rot, the criminality, at the very core of that Western power structure.
So the Medusa cabal had to turn the hunt for Carlos into this desperate, deadly campaign to destroy David Webb first, ensuring their own secrets stayed safe.
It became institutional self-preservation above all else.
In the end, David Webb is offered a kind of solution, right? A safe house, protection from the government.
Yeah, they offer him a future, but it's a gilded cage. A government-provided personal prison, basically. A lavish estate in Virginia, but surrounded by searchlights, guards, servants. Total confinement.
And he rejects it.
Outright. Because he realizes his children wouldn't truly be free there. They couldn't have normal lives, neighbors, friends. It would be a luxurious prison sentence for them, too.
So he chooses freedom, however dangerous, over that kind of institutional safety. Maybe the last act of the scholar, David Webb.
Perhaps. But the threat hasn't vanished. Carlos might have fled, but his final message to Webb was specific, personal, and chilling. He taunts him. Paris, if you dare. Or shall it be a certain minor university in Maine, Dr. Webb?
He knows where Webb came from. He knows the scholar still exists inside somewhere. The past is always there, weaponized, marketed by his own government, hunted by his enemies.
Exactly. Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. Given the depth of this Medusa conspiracy, which is still out there, still powerful, and given Carlos's lingering influence and capability, is it actually possible for David Webb to ever truly be free at last?
Especially when the very identity that keeps him and his family alive, Jason Bourne, is the ultimate cage.